Welcome back, everyone. For today's video, today I'm going to be recapping the last round at the January Melee tournament held here at Chess Zone. Now, as of round 4, I have a score of 2 out of 3, and after finishing the third game, I had a quick bite to eat before getting me some brain fuel before the last game started, so hopefully that would help, but let me just say that this game was a roller coaster. This game was wild, tactical, and it even comes with a twist at the end. So there's a lot to show in this game, and it's definitely a lot to take in. At least it's one of the more exciting games. So buckle up and get ready. So for this round, I'm playing against another kid, but this time he's international. He's from Turkey, the country of Turkey. And so you guys could say that this is my first time playing an international opponent. After the tournament, I went in to do some research on this individual, and yeah, he has a FIDE. He represents the country of Turkey. I guess he moved here or something, and is living in Georgia now, but he speaks Turkish and everything, so yeah, his name is Firat Sahiner, hopefully I said that right, and yeah, this game was just something else. I know I've said that already, but I'm trying to bring across my point. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and jump straight into the action. So, Firat begins the game with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6. He plays the 3 knights game, which I haven't seen too much, and I decide to go into the 4 knights game, and he plays the Ruy Lopez, sort of like a 4 knights Ruy Lopez, and I decide not to go for the double Spanish variation where you copy white and put the bishop on b4. Play it slightly different. I play bishop c5, and this may look like it drops a pawn for black, because of this. But if white were to take your pawn, you have a way to get it back. Not with queen d4. That may look appealing because you fork the knight and checkmate. But white can defend everything with knight d3, and or worse, you haven't recovered your pawn the right way. Instead, the correct way is to play bishop f2, lure the king out, and then play queen d4, and collect the knight back. And although the engine says this is equal, I prefer black here, because white has lost castling rights, and that's usually a good thing. So, maybe Firat would have went for this, but instead he castled. I castle as well. And he plays the move d3, and now I think it's the right time to defend my pawn. I go d6, he goes h3, h6, and here he plays the move knight a4, trying to trade his knight for the bishop. I move the bishop back, intending for him to take, which he does, but I open my rook, so it's a trade-off. Here, Firat plays a weird move. He plays the move knight e1, which I was not expecting for him to do. I was expecting maybe his bishop to develop to e3 or something like that. Yeah, but knight e1, I was not expecting that. I suppose his idea was to try to play f4 and maybe push his f-pawn forward. But this is not the right time to do it. Here I play the move knight d4, and I notice that his bishop's a bit loose. If he decides to solidify his bishop with c4, I was more than happy to just trade, and he's left with these doubled pawns, and his bishop otherwise has nowhere else to go. It's pretty much stuck, except going to c4, but then I kick it away again with b5, and I was fully expecting him to go bishop e3 here, and in which case I would trade, but he instead makes it more interesting. He plays the move c3, counterattacking my knight. And if I move my knight, he just takes my pawn, so I'm kind of forced to take his bishop. He takes my knight, and we get an interesting pawn structure in the center where a lot of pawn tension is happening. And I'm thinking about what pawn to take, whether the d3 pawn or the d4 pawn, and I decide to do this. And I was thinking about knight takes e4 here, then the queen would get out, so I instead play c5 to solidify my pawn on d4. And at this point, we each have about 26 minutes. We're moving at the relatively same pace. And here he plays the move f3. He has to defend his pawn somehow. And here I play the move bishop e6 to attack the pawn on c4. And after he plays b3 to defend, he's playing this is a weird position. All of his pawns are on light squares here, but he has a dark squared bishop, so that means his dark squared bishop is going to be not blocked in. It's going to be powerful. So the thing is, I don't really have a dark squared bishop of my own, so I can't really exploit his holes on the dark squares. So I don't know. This position just looks funny and weird at the same time. And here the engine suggests to play the move b5, and I was thinking about playing that, but then after this, didn't really know how to gain the pawn back. If I try and move like queen b6, then white can just solidify everything with a4. But what I didn't see is that I can just move my bishop back, attack the pawn that way, and then white can't play a4. Well, they can, but then in which case you would take, and the a pawn is pinned. So you would win your pawn back like that. And if white were to try to hold on to the pawn, you would just gang up on it with queen b6, and you would recapture with a much better position. So b5 definitely was a viable option here, but I instead go with rook e8. Not a bad move at all. He plays knight d3, bishop d7. I'm preparing to go b5. I'm having it backed up with the bishop. Played this at the wrong moment. He goes bishop f4 to attack my pawn, and I go bishop c6 to open the queen defending it. He goes rook e1, and I was thinking he wants to go e5 really badly, and I was kind of worried he would do that because if I were to take on e5, like my c pawn would be left hanging, and that would leave the d4 pawn weak. And if I was thinking about here, then that blocks the queen defending the pawn, and I don't know, I just felt uncomfortable with e5. The engine said I was overreacting. So after knight h5, bishop h2, I'm like, how do I stop e5? I can't go f6 here, really, because then g4 traps my knight. And then the engine gets wild. It says you're not even worse here. You go f5, and if white takes, you have queen g5, king h1, and then you take, and then white's king is in shambles here, so it's worth the sacrifice. But that's just pure craziness. I go with b5, which is best. Not best, f5 is best. But I play a good move myself. You can play a move or anything, really. You can even go queen d7. And if e5 were to happen, then this isn't scary at all. Even here, this isn't scary because, well, your d4 pawn's fine, so I kind of overreacted to e5. So anyway, after I go at b5 to try to lash out on the queen side, he goes queen d2. I trade, and I think this was good for me because his pawns are now split over there. His c4 pawn is isolated, along with the a pawn. And here I play the move rook a4 to attack his c4 pawn. He goes rook c1 to defend. And I'm still worried about e5, even more now, because if, let's just say, play a random move, just to show the point. If I go like queen f6, if he goes e5 now, I can't really take this because I was worried about knight c5, but engine says it's fine because you can go rook a3. So, yeah, I was just really worried about e5 for some reason. I did not have to worry there. So I instead I make a mistake. I go queen a8. I'm trying to create counterplay on the other side of the board. But after he plays rook c2, apparently not best. You have to take the pawn first. I go queen a6, and messing up here. He goes ahead and takes my pawn. And the best move here is apparently rook c4, which I was considering during the game. I was already not liking my position already. But after this, I was worried, what would I do after rook c1? And he's gonna win the pawn back. I have to go queen e6 here, and after bishop c5, I was like, okay, I'm gonna lose the d4 pawn now. This is not good. I'm gonna be down 2 pawns, but the engine here is ridiculous. Says even here you're just even here, after you can trade... Oh, okay, I guess you get the a-pawn, but to me, it just looked like you're losing pawn, and even here, white's still better, so I don't know. Get freaked out by taking the pawn. I play a bad move. I blunder. I play bishop b4. I'm trying to make this things complicated. He goes knight c5. I go ahead and go into the sequence, and I'm down in exchange in a pawn. This is not going well. Queen c6. His rook is hanging, and his knight's hanging, but he goes ahead and takes my bishop. I take his knight. He goes c5. Queen. I go knight f4. I'm trying to create some counterplay. I'm making the position trickier. And here we each have about, I don't know, I think I have like 10 minutes, and he has a little more, maybe a minute or two. Knight f4. The queen can't take because it needs to keep guarding the rook. So he moved his rook back, and now my knight is threatened. So I go g5 to defend it. He goes c6. He's pushing his passed pawn. I go d3, preparing to go fork the king and the rook if he lets me. He moves the king out of the way. I go queen a8, c7, queen c8, and one day I'm thinking about sacrificing on h3 if the time is right. He goes king h2 to stop that idea. Rook e7, and here we each had about 6 or 7 minutes on this position. So rook e7, I'm going to win his pawn back. Yep. See, if he goes queen a5, that's the best move. I have to trade like this. And honestly, I don't know why Firat didn't keep defending this pawn. I thought this was a logical move. But instead he plays a4. He's trying to roll his other pawn down the board. Go ahead and take. He goes a5, and the tables are turning. I'm still worse, but I'm not nearly as worse as before. And I have to play this move knight e2. And I was looking at it, but okay, I was like, okay, the rook's going to take. At least I have a check, but what's that going to do? And after the following sequence, queen c5. Oh, queen c5 isn't correct. I'm supposed to go knight e2 check here. And then king f1. I defend my pawn, and apparently this is closer to a draw, but Engine here just says at some point white would sack the rook back for the knight, and this would be a drawn queen endgame. Because you have to be careful, like you can't mindlessly push your pawn here. I guess you can, but if you're not careful, then like you can have some queen d4 action, and then white has to give back the material. So that's probably why Engine recommends sacking at some point. But with 5 minutes on the clock, I did not see that far, and I don't think Firat would have either. So I go queen b8. I'm trying to be tricky. If he plays a6, I was going to take, and whatever way white takes back, this is the worst way. Whatever way he takes back, I would have discoveries like this, because I aligned the queen on the diagonal of the king. So after queen b8, he plays g3 to block the diagonal. I play knight e6. And here he plays rook b1. I go queen a7. And I was setting a trap. I saw that if he were to take, which is a blunder, I would infiltrate with my queen and then bring the rook to the second rank. And there's simply too many threats for white to deal with. And in fact, the best move here is for white to sack the queen for the rook. And I would most definitely go on to win this. Yeah, so he can't take the pawn. Little trap I set, and under time pressure I was hoping he'd fall for it, but he didn't. He played rook e to c1. I play knight c5, and here he plays the move rook c4, which looks like it defends the pawn, but I have to give myself some credit here where it's due. I find this brilliancy move. Knight takes e4, which is good. It's a deflection tactic. If the rook were to take, I have deflected the rook off from blocking the c-file, which means rook c2 is a possibility, and I pin the queen to the king. So, yeah, under time pressure, I found this tactics, which I'm proud of. So after knight takes e4, he saw the sack. And he can't take here either because, as I mentioned earlier, I would infiltrate with the queen. And let's see, I think best is to just do this. and if the queen has to sack, you defend your rook in the process, and you're completely winning. So I'm getting some counterplay here. I feel like I'm making a comeback. He plays rook c7, which is the only move. Queen c7. And it seems here that after queen takes d3, white's doing great because it seems like I have to move my knight somewhere, in which case my momentum is ended. But I play a second brilliancy with like 3 minutes on the clock. But the knight takes g3, so I've sacked my knight twice in this game. And this is really flashy stuff. If the queen were to take, this opens up queen c2 check, and I would be forking the king and the rook, and white would have to play here, and this would be a drawn queen endgame. So my knight is doing a lot of damage, and Farhat here has what we would say is throwing the game. Not totally throwing, but he lost his advantage, and I'm here feeling really proud of myself. I'm like, no, I'm making a comeback. This is great. Hopefully I can win. But we both have low time, so anything can happen. He plays king g1, queen c5 check. Another tricky moment. You can't go here to attack the knight because you would blunder checkmate. So he saw this. He went king g2. I play knight h5, threatening a fork. And here he plays king f1, knight f4 anyway, queen d2. And at this point, this is where disaster strikes. Here, after queen d2, I remember he pressed the clock with, he was trying to notate everything. He pressed the clock, and after pressing the clock, he only 10 seconds on the clock. I had a little bit more time. I probably had about 30 or 40 seconds, which is still not a lot of time, but more than him. I literally could have done anything here. I could have played queen c6 to try to go for a check on h1. I could have taken on h3, and I could have played a check. Literally anything. I can even play queen f5 to threaten to line up on the king and attack the rook. Possibilities are endless. But for some reason, and I can't really explain why, this was super frustrating. I grabbed his a-pawn, and after doing so, realized that I had choked. This is the equivalent of playing the move queen takes a5. And this is straight up the Botez gambit. This is straight up hanging a queen. And after I touched the a-pawn and he pointed it out, I was devastated. This is the second time within only 2 days that I accidentally touch a piece that I didn't mean to touch. So I was doing so well making a comeback here, and the game just had to end like this. If people watching, because the game was nearly over. All the games were basically done, and ours was the last one left. I'm sitting there I throw back in my chair. I'm like, oh my God, you absolute idiot! Why did you do that? And this is chess, man. Chess is brutal. You can make mistakes and get nervous. So I think I need to work on managing my emotions in time pressure, and not being super impulsive, and I don't know, I just need to not touch my opponent's pieces or something like that. But this is uncharacteristic. I don't think I've ever accidentally touched a piece that I didn't mean to capture or move. So this was just something else. And after I touched the a-pawn, I declared my resignation, and I was mad, and Farhat here was celebrating as he should, because he took a breath of fresh air, the pressure was over, and yeah, man, this was something else. I literally could have done anything else in this position reasonable, and I decide to touch his a-pawn. I just didn't see the queen was defending it. Yeah, man, my nerves need to calm down in these situations. So yeah, we end with a painful loss in the last round of the tournament. Final score of 2 out of 4. Yeah, so I didn't end up winning anything. I think if I would have won the game, I would have won something. But anyway, stuff happens. What can you do about it? This is chess. Chess is a hard game. Chess is brutal. So, going to go ahead and say thank you guys for watching. If you like content like this, please don't forget to smash that subscribe button below. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think of the video, any tips on managing your emotions in time trouble. And also, I should mention that the rating results have come out, so I'll be linking those in the description of the video. So yeah, have a great rest of your day or night. Bye, and wish me luck for my